one ambles along the leafy thoroughfares or wends one's way through the filthy back streets and alleys, how often one is struck almost senseless by the lustrous glisten of a fellow pedestrian's forehead. From the richly aged patina of the chartered accountant to the crystalline gleam of the young butcher boy, a fine and glossy brow never fails to bring a knowing smile and a sense of joie de vivre to even the stoniest of hearts. The first written evidence of forehead buffing can be found within the 40th book of the Old Testament in the Holy Bible. In the book of Bob, chapter 23, verse 15, the prophet Gam relates, "And the Lord came unto them as they pined and wept in the desert. For there were no trees nor sup, neither were there sweetmeats nor milk nor horns. And the Lord saith unto them,
See thee thy brow, whence thy hair and nose top meet.
And they were bewildered, and spake unto the Lord, O Lord our God, we understand thee not. Dost thou mean the tip of our nose, Almighty One? Then God did say,
Do not think that I talk of nose tips or end or any other such. Thou knowest what I mean.
And the people were afraid, and cried unto him, No, we know not, O Lord. And God did reach down, and touch the strongest amongst them upon his brow, and lo, did his brow shine like 1,000 stars. And the people did rejoice, until their thirst maddened them, and God looked down and saw that it was good. Since those early biblical times, the art of buffing the human forehead has had a long, illustrious, and occasionally tragic history. The Latin medical name for the forehead is sinciput, meaning half a head, and indeed, during the medieval period, when forehead buffing first became a mark of status, the lengths the fashionable took often resulted in just that. As the saying goes, fashion knows no pain, but as buffing became increasingly widespread in England during the 14th century, a terrible event was about to impact on the lives of many. The Black Death, a beastly pestilence that cost the lives of many hundreds of Englishmen between 1315 and 1317. But the merry English have always looked on the bright side, and one of the happier and more positive aspects of the Black Death was the formation of the Buffers Guild. This band of intrepid itinerants, led by Sir Francis Merkin, travelled the southwest, buffing the foreheads of both the living and the dead. Sadly, the guild was short-lived, as all 20 members, Sir Francis included, succumbed to the plague within 2 weeks of its formation. And as the English licked their wounds, both figuratively and literally, the disease retreated. And so the buffer's art fell into that maelstrom of forgotten might-have-beens for several decades, along with personal hygiene and dancing on the table of that unelected man in his ivory tower, and the tweaking of the King of Spain's beard. A brief and primitive resurgence during the 100 Years' War saw Viscount Tarquin Whitcomb of Bridgewater buff his forehead to such an extent before an important battle that his face fell off. And in 1412, Lady Maria Howard of Wigan was decapitated while being buffed with a halibut. During the reign of Oliver Cromwell as Lord Protector, following the wretched English Civil War, buffing was outlawed, along with learning, birthdays, shoes, relationships, toilets, purpose, gratitude, Christmas, and soap. However, when Cromwell was disinterred in January 1661, it was found that his forehead had been secretly buffed by his personal buffing staff, and therefore it was unbuffed before his head was cut off and stuffed onto a pole for 20 years. And so, as it always will, time marched on. And thanks to the development of modern and more scientific methods of buffing, some pioneered by the genius that was Isaac Newton, all manner of techniques were now being discussed. The national feeling was that this lost art required resurrection. As steam technology was being developed at the start of the Industrial Revolution, in 1782, a woman, of all things, one Lady MacDonald Graham Fackington, invented the buffing engine, heralding a resurgence of buffing, the consequence of which we still see today. The device worked by way of a series of cogs and pulleys within a pressurized cylinder, and once the expected and inevitable accidents during the trial period were out of the way, it proved popular on the high streets, especially among the burgeoning middle classes. The Victorians, as would be expected from such a thoroughly decent and seemingly populace, took buffing to their collective breast. High street shops, which had previously dealt in hooves, skin, rabbits, and ironmongery, had great buffing wheels installed, meaning their customers could walk proudly and fashionably around their hometowns and cities. Today, the forehead buffer is a respected pillar of many communities. Buffing is taught in many universities, and Prime Minister Mr. Asquith is considering adding buffing foundation studies to the public school curriculum. And so, with a hearty nod to the glorious future, and a questionably sly wink to the past, and so say all of us, buff that forehead.